Hello, and today we'll continue with Chapter 1 for Nerus. Body slowly moved the lamp around as they inspected the study. It was only then that she realized that there was a smell like iron in the air. Just by looking at the study, Elisa had a good idea of what it was like during a normal day. The abbot was rather baggy now, sitting comfortably on that cushioned seat doing paperwork with a bored look in her eyes. Somewhat dusty files and books sitting on the cells, light entering through the open windows, and occasionally making the curtains dance in some rumble from the working monks coming from the hallway. If only tonight that was the case. Silence reigned in the church that night. The curtains were closed and the books and papers were chaotically spread across the study's floor. And some of them had fallen on a river, or wet river that flowed from near the door to behind the desk. There was no one sitting at the desk working. Instead, what they saw was a pair of legs that stuck out from behind the desk. By the 7. Elisa, don't touch anything else. Bonnie didn't need to warn her. She understood what they had stumbled into. She had seen scenes like these many times while working with the crocodile. The detective stepped inside, avoiding touching the papers and the blood as he made his way around the desk to check the body. All this blood still fresh. He got killed just now. Is it a monk? No, this is Giorgio. You mean the abbot of the Church of Na? That's right. What on earth was he doing here? That's a darn good question. What were he and an unknown person doing at the church at this hour? How did it end up in murder? Is it the same culprit behind William's death? Body pondered about this as he looked down, his eyes not focused on anything in particular, not even the corpse. There seemed to be some kind of sparkle being reflected off of them. And these situations, Body's eyes always shine much like a child's that had just received a new toy, but it wasn't just that this time. Elisa took a step into the room and tried to peek behind the desk. The atmosphere suddenly changed. Elisa took a step back, startled by a sudden popping and a crack. The room grew darker. No, rather, it was as if the light was being sucked into a single point of the room. Something floated up from behind the desk. A pale light, constantly changing and releasing bolts of electricity, until it all concentrated in a small and white ball of fire. It floated, going higher until it was touching the ceiling. Lisa stared at it, her mouth hanging open as she took another step back and held onto the door's frame. Bitey? As all this happened, the crocodile just kept staring at the corpse. As he finally turned to see Elisa, the world was engulfed in a flash. Elisa let out a scream. With a thunderous roar, the fire disappeared just as suddenly as it had manifested. Body's eyes opened wide, but he quickly regained his composure and walked towards the heartbeat woman. Elisa, what's wrong? He asked as he placed a hand on her back. You didn't see it? By the 7, please tell me you did. I don't have any idea of what you are talking about, unfortunately. This silly move or anything like that. No, forget it. Elisa's eyes shifted again to the spot where the flame had been. Now all that remained was a black spot where it had touched the ceiling. Body followed her gaze, but he didn't seem to notice anything new. After a moment, he pulled Elisa closer, letting her rest her head on his belly. I think we are both stressed after the night, especially you since you had a very bad sleep. Let's go back to the dormitory. I'll tell Maggie what happened here. Meanwhile, I want you to go get some more rest, alright? I'll wake you up later. Shouldn't one of us stay here in case the culprit comes back? No, we need to stick together precisely because they might still be out there. Alright, no objections. They walked out of the study, Body closed the door. Yeah, that's the same guy I saw the other night. Bastard had an ugly as hell chin, let me tell you. I can't believe this. A small group had congregated outside the Abbott's study. Maggie, Buddy, and Elisa had been the first ones to arrive. Santiago and Remigio had been called shortly after, and Buddy had requested the presence of one of the hunters as they were the ones guarded at Abbott's last night. Mag was wiping her teary eyes with a handkerchief, and Santiago and Remigio had just finished looking at the scene inside the study. Buddy had already informed them of what happened during the escapade the night before. He had told Elisa he would deal with the situation, so she walks in silence. Indeed, losing our Abbott in the accident is one thing, but having one from another church die here and murdered nonetheless. Buddy, can we trust that what you told us was the truth? Yes. I expected a more elaborate response, especially considering you broke the rules to come here last night. I don't like what this guy is getting into. You can be pedantic if you want, but that isn't going to get you anywhere. You have no reason to lie to you. That is if we assume you aren't more involved with this than you are letting on. For the seventh sake, Lisa took one step toward Santiago, but before she could even come up with a defense, Maggie spoke up. Santiago. Although there were still tears coming out of her eyes, Maggie's voice was enough to make the possum jump where he stood. He pressed his lips together and looked at the woman, trying to maintain a composed look. Perhaps you have forgotten, so I will remind you. I was the one that invited Buddy here to investigate the crime you denied at the time. And Buddy is here as an accomplice, then what does that say about me? Are you trying to imply I had any involvement with Giorgio's demise or Williams? No, of course not, Maggie. Please refrain from speaking if you don't have anything of value to add. Stop fucking up already, Santiago. The security chief's cheeks puffed as he looked down and bit his lips. Shortly after, he adjusted his posture before returning to his usual mocking expression. Lisa imitated his smile, her eyes still on him. Santiago shook his head and ignored her. Anyway, we will need to call the police now. I'll go do the honors, I guess. Please do. What are you going to do, Buddy? It's better we don't touch the crime scene before the police arrive. I'll ask Miss. Buddy turned to the feline, doing a drawn-out gesture with his hand. Layla. Right, Miss Layla here. Maggie stared at the leopard, her eyes searching for something. Why you are not Hataro? She's your boss. She wanted to come, but the other Abbotts caught wind that something bad happened. Then they noticed one of them was missing, and they put two and two together. Since she is getting an earful from them, I had to come in her place. I see. With that out of the way, I believe we should proceed. Is there anything we may carry an interview? Is there anywhere we may carry an interview without getting interrupted, Maggie? After looking around briefly, the human woman nodded toward a door right next to the Abbey study. Just take that room. It's all yours until this is over. Very generous of you. Thank you. Layla, Elisa, come in. This room had a layout very similar to the Abbott's study next door, with walls lined in a similar wallpaper and red drapes hiding the windows and wooden furniture. The difference was that everything seemed to be in perfect order here. There wasn't even a secret document to or even decoration on top of the desk. Maybe this was Maggie's old study. Buddy closed the door, put one hand in his pocket, and gestured towards the couch and chairs on one of the sides of the room. Let's take a seat, girls. The hunters took one of the chairs while Buddy and Lisa settled down on the couch. Layla was trying to appear calm, but the way she grasped her hands together, fidgeting every once in a while, betrayed some nervousness. I remember her from the trip. She was almost crawling up the walls by the last day, a very, very energetic girl. I don't see her having anything to hide. Buddy reached inside his coat and retrieved a tiny notebook and a pen. He laid back, the couch creaking under his weight, and got ready to take notes. Okay, what can I help you with? We understand you and the other hunters were hired as bodyguards by the Abbotts. Last night you were patrolling the lower floor of the dormitory, correct? That's right. I think I saw you two on your way out. Buddy smiled and stopped writing on the notebook for a moment. Oh, and we were trying to be sneaky. You guys didn't do a very good job. I'm surprised you managed to follow Mr. Giorgio to the church without him noticing. That's why Lisa went in first. You see, she has lighter footsteps. Do you see anyone else enter the dormitory that night? What about the dead Abbott? Layla's ears perked up as she stumbled on her words before answering. Buddy squinted at the high point before going back to taking notes. That's a strange thing. Last time I saw Mr. Giorgio, he went to sleep. At the dinner, he went into Mr. Brandis' cell. Then he came back and said he was tired, so he went to his cell. Brandis, Abbott attempt, and no one saw him leave after that. I asked Hartwell if she did, and she told me she didn't. Besides you and Hartwell, who else came here for this job? Oh, just the two of us and Josue. I meant to talk to him before coming here, but I couldn't find him, and that vampire with the resting bitch face was being really pussy. Buddy snorted. I see. Tell me, do you have the chance to visit the victim's cell? One of the first things we did when the vampire came to see us. Was the window open? Layla blinked, bringing a hand to her chest briefly before dropping it back down. Elisa leaned forward, arms crossed and resting on her legs. Yes, the window was open. Do you think Mr. Giorgio might have exited through there to avoid us noticing? It's likely. Buddy paused to scribble something. Next, what was your relationship with the victim? It was unprofessional. Hataro might have known him better, but this was my first time meeting most of the Abbotts. I think it's the same for poor Josue. Very well, let's do the following. I need to find this Josue and bring him to me, or at least talk to him. Is it necessary? I think the Abbott exited through the window. I can't imagine Josue saw him and didn't mention it to us. I'd like to have his testimony for good measure. Perhaps he will surprise us. Elisa's eyes narrowed. Do you not want us to meet with him? Well, Josue is an excellent hunter, he is. In that instant, the three of them turned their heads to the stage door. They heard her footsteps and voices outside. Elisa decided to not pay it any mind and set the conversation back into course. He's an excellent hunter, but he doesn't do well with people. What was it that he called it? Social anxiety? He's got that thing which makes him very bad at talking, especially with strangers. I'm sorry to hear that, but we'll need to see him regardless. He just needs time to prepare. I'll talk to him on your behalf in the meantime. I guess that'll do. Any other questions? No, you're free to go. I suspect the town police just arrived at the scene. We should go out and introduce ourselves. Hopefully, they are feeling more cooperative now. Buddy said with the same level of enthusiasm as a teenager about to get dragged to a family gathering in some remote location. You go ahead, Layla. I want to talk with Buddy alone. Oh, okay. I'll see you again soon. The leopard jumped off her seat and walked up to the door. As she reached for the knob, she let out a loud "oh" and looked back into the door. I had completely forgotten. Before I saw you exit the dormitory, I saw that possum guy come in. I see. Thank you, Layla. We'll look into it. The feline gave them a big smile and excused herself. Elisa turned to the crocodile, who was putting the notebook and pen back inside his coat pocket. There's something trouble you, Elisa. Well, what do you think about this case so far, buddy? It's interesting, that's for sure. Things are starting to spice up. The hybrid woman sighed, a tired frown on her face. Right, listen, don't you think this might turn out to be too big for the two of us? What makes you say that? Two Edwards are dead. It's unlikely that it is a coincidence. Someone must be targeting them. It wouldn't be surprising if a politically motivated group were behind us. In that case, we could be outnumbered. There's a chance there's a single perpetrator behind us, yes, but even then, it's likely this case will devolve into a bigger incident. Is this 2 months for one private detective and his assistant to handle? So you want to back off from the case? I'm not saying we have to, not right now, but there's a police refusal to cooperate. I'm afraid I'm not backing out of this one, Lisa. Call it detective intuition, but I can feel it in my bones. There is something special about this case that I tend to crack it open. But I understand if you are worried. You are a grown-up now. I'm not going to force you to stick around if you don't want to. You know you don't need to worry about me. I already survived a lot of crazy stuff on my own before we started working together. I still guess you'd say that. So you think you can take on both the police and whoever is behind us? Yes. Fine, let's go now. One moment. Now that we are speculating about the culprit's identity, it's about time we start building a profile for our killer. If it helps, I'm sure it is a group that's behind this. Even if there is some secret organization involved in this, they couldn't have any significant numbers here. Lisa blinked and then crossed her arms. Elaborate. But was here to explain that the church of men kept track of everyone that entered and left the walls. The only entrance to the abbey needed to be opened by the guards from inside was under constant surveillance, so people sneaking in or out was unlikely. On his second day, the crocodile and Maggie had gone through the records to look for any irregularities, but the cellarer hadn't noticed anything. Samaritan Church usually scouted for talented people to stay at the abbey rather than taking applications. It was unlikely that a large group of people would manage to sneak into the church even if they faked their backgrounds. Lisa nodded as she heard this. I guess the only exceptions to this rule would be the monks that come over from Knox's church. Indeed, you can see now, there's no need to worry about a secret death cult kidnapping or murdering us. It really can't be more than a few people. I see at most there are 3 people involved. They would still be outnumbered, but it's nothing we haven't dealt with before. I guess you were a couple of steps ahead of me. Something else you forgot to tell me? Well, the more I think about it, the more I'm convinced the circumstances pointed at one of the abbots. The hybrid woman raised an eyebrow and tightened her arms. I know I was guessing this yesterday, but it was just that, I guess. What makes you say this? That wound on the back of William's neck. It just makes no sense to me that a cement monk would do such a sloppy job. Think about it. This isn't just an art school where they make books. This is where all the discoveries at Knox's Church first arrive before they are released to the world at large. Combine that with the infirmary having a greenhouse blessed by earth. Those are intended for transfigurative potions, but they could be repurposed for more nefarious ends. If a monk wanted to kill William, then they'd have all the time in the world to research poisons and then mate them with what they have in the infirmary. I don't think the medic would let anyone walk away with a lot of ingredients to make the poison, but given enough time they could sneak out enough. Or he suggested the culprit either didn't have the resources or time to do this, so instead they hit him on the back of the head. Correct. It cast suspicion on people that usually wouldn't be in the Abbey, the abbots included. What about the Knox monks? They have been here for me. They have been here for a few years already. They have plenty of time to enact this plan. I see. I was just guessing yesterday, but now you say it like this, it does sound a bit convincing. Whenever I can, I could go check the greenhouse to see if there are enough ingredients to pull off something like this. Thank you. That would be very helpful. Hopefully the culprit was generous enough to leave some clues behind this time. Ready to go talk to police? Let's get it over with. Despite looking like a bearded vulture, Bernardo moved with the agility you expect from a smaller avian. After their handshake, the man simply crossed his arms behind his back, his red and silver eyes looking at the crocodile intently. Body wiped his hand on his coat and put it back in his pocket. Despite the crocodile's unfriendliness, at least it didn't detect any tension from Bernardo, not even in his eyes. Was it obliviousness or indifference? Let's get straight to business. Allow me to start by apologizing in the name of the local police department. They'll seem to be in a achoo. At the very last second, the bird managed to catch the sneeze and to fold his arm. His smile slowly returned to his face, this time accompanied by a pair of squinting, playful eyes. Excuse me, please. It would seem I caught the bird flu. Where was I? It was a misfire with the higher-ups' judgment, but no need to worry. I'll be leading the investigation in full force now. Buddy snorted and shook his head. That was a smile he reserved for when he was truly baffled. A bit late, but it's nice to see you came around. I'm hoping you will have at least the courtesy to let us continue participating in the investigation. Yes, naturally. Both Elisa and the crocodile waited for the bird to continue, but he didn't. After a few seconds, Elisa cleared his throat and spoke. Okay, what's the catch? Ah, you must be Elisa. Excuse. No need for a handshake. Please just answer the question. Well, there's no catch. There's at least one murderer on the loose right now. Someone died because the police failed to take action, and now it's up to me to rectify this failure. I believe you and Baji will be pressed as assets in achieving this. For what I've heard, you two are a formidable duo. They're right. Body puffed out his chest. Lisa just looked back and forth between the two men. But that's enough about that. I'm glad to have you on board. Later, I would like to hear about your findings over a nice glass of wine, but for now, let's see if my comrades discover anything, shall we? Right. The study looked the same as it did last night, except for the two human policemen working. One of them was taking pictures of the room while the other knelt in front of the corpse. Giorgio had been cut out on most of his clothes. Judging from the two gloves hanging from pockets of the man next to him, he had just finished his preliminary autopsy. Looks like we are right on time. Did you find anything? The human got on his feet, resting a hand on his hip. Elisa and Buddy introduced themselves and then he gave his report. Nothing you can't tell at a glance. The cut on his neck is his only recent injury. Do we know where the perpetrator attacked him from? It's hard to tell at this stage, but in my opinion, he was attacked from behind. Someone snuck up on him and inflicted the fatal wound before he realized what was going on. Didn't have a chance to struggle. I wonder who brought this lamp here. Who placed it on the table. It wouldn't hurt to inspect it for prints, would it? Just take it into account and grab it to let up the room before we realized this was a crime scene. Noted. And another thing, we found this on him. The officer produced a small plastic bag. Inside was a gray metallic key. I believe this is how he got in here last night. Very well. If you are done with your preliminary report, I'd like you to move the corpse to the morgue. I believe all of us are aching to search the study. Sure, we'll need the equipment there to analyze him further anyhow. Hey Andy, go get the stretcher. We're moving out. Bernardo helped the officers put the body on a stretcher and covered it with a white sheet. They had some trouble going through the door as rigor mortis had already settled in with the corpses outstretched to either side. After the bearded vulture returned the body to Alicia, offered each a pair of white gloves. Need a hand. The bird smiled wide as if he had said something funny. While she and Body were putting the gloves on, Alicia suddenly frowned and looked up at Bernardo. Excuse me, but are you sure we can trust those two? Andy and Enrique, naturally. With the way the police have treated this case so far, I'm a bit skeptical. I don't mean any offense, but do we know for certain they won't butcher the investigation on purpose? You suspect someone wants to interfere with the investigation, don't you? Yes. You don't have anything to worry about. I will trust those two with my life. There have been rumors in the station about the investigation of William's death was suddenly called off. I don't know whether they are true or not, but I figured that I couldn't afford to bring just anyone for this. I guarantee you, those two are men with integrity handpicked by me for this operation. They won't be strayed from their duty to deliver justice. I see. Are you done? Let's get started. Of course, Giorgio must have come here last night for a reason. Let's figure out what that was. Or at the very least, if the culprit got ahead of us in finding it. Body lit around her hand on her chin. Okay, where do we start? What about the desk? It's the most obvious spot, but maybe something is hidden in plain sight there. The three suspected the desk. Bernardo started rummaging through the jungle of papers and miscellany that was at the top. Meanwhile, Elisa and Bati searched the drawers. The hybrid suggested it would be easier to remove them all together and empty the contents somewhere else. That way they could also check for any false bottom too. They ended up doing it in body study to avoid potentially contaminating the crime scene. They didn't find anything remarkable except for a very expensive packet of cigars. They returned to the Abbott's study after. Got a light? Buddy held one of the cigars between the two fingers, an impious smile on his face. Lisa shook her head while Bernardo stared at him, head tilted sideways. I do have some matches, but maybe we should leave it for when we are outside. It was a joke. There's nothing here. Any luck on your side? I inspected the desk from top to bottom. Didn't find anything unusual. Guess it was a bit too obvious. Okay, what's next? Hey buddy, come here. Come help out. Hey buddy, come help me out here. Oh, are we looking for a secret switch? Maybe a secret passage will open if we pull the right book. A secret passage to where? This room borders a hallway, the outside, and two other studies. There's nowhere secret to go. What about down? No. Anyway, I want to move this, see if there's anything behind. Buddy looked down and shrugged. Doesn't look like it was moved easily, but it's worth a try. The crocodile gestured to Elisa to step back, grabbed the bookshelf from one of the sides and pulled it with around as much ease as with opening a door. There wasn't anything on the wall behind, nor on the back part of the bookshelf. Elisa grunted and then got on her knees, feeling around the lower part of the bookshelf. Under the lowest row, there was a chunk of carved wood tall enough someone could use it to hide something inside if it was hollow. But no matter how much she touched it, nothing seemed to come off or open it. Elisa then put her hand under the shelf and felt around the bottom of it to no avail. She got back up, letting out another irritated grunt. I was almost certain this would be it. Why don't we check the one behind the desk? I got a much better feeling about that one. I agree, let's. This time when Buddy moved the cell, something caught the crocodile's eye. He seemed to be taken aback for an instant, and then a small smile started forming on the corner of his mouth. What is it? Did you find anything? Yep, this is a safe on this wall. But there's one problem. Oh, don't tell me. Lisa walked around the crocodile to take a peek. There was a black and gold metallic door. If the one thing, the wallpaper opened ever so slightly. The hybrid clicked her tongue and Buddy reached out to open it completely. Yes, it looks like we are too late. It's empty. Damn! I was afraid this was going to be the case, but let's not get disheartened knowing this safe exists, knowing this safe exists could help us arrive at our breakthrough later down the road. Indeed, there's already something strange about this safe. How come? Think about it carefully. How did the culprit open it? Well, they must have known the code somehow. Oh, if they knew the code, the chances are they already figured out other details about the safe, such as the location. And even if they didn't know exactly where it was, why did they trash the room? They'd only need to check the walls or any spot where you'd be able to fit one of these. They had no reason to mess with the desk or the books. Curious, perhaps our killer was looking for something besides the contents of this safe. Or maybe Giorgio lived longer than we figured and made this mess himself. Buddy scratched aside his head, eyes on the floor. The killer could have done it as a way to confuse us too. If so, our killer has quite an erratic behavior pattern. Let's be extra careful and search the study as thoroughly as possible just in case. Any other ideas? The windows gave a pleasant view of the garden in front of the church, but there wasn't much else to say about it then. Elisa imagined the culprit inside the study last night, watching from the window and seeing Buddy pass in front of the church, and then Giorgio minutes later. She decided to look outside. Someone had intruded through them, but there was nothing. No dirt, no mud, no grass on the floor nearby or the sill. Not much to see here. I'll search elsewhere. I think I'm out of ideas. What about you two? I'm in the same boat. I'm assuming the other two cops checked the floor before we arrived. Correct, they found some hair and dirt, but nothing pointed at anyone in particular. If we are done here, we should move out. We need to discuss our next step. The bird started making his way to the hallways. Buddy and Lisa walked after him. Actually, before we go, there's one more thing I want to check here. What? The hybrid turned around, looking up. The two men followed her gaze to the ceiling of the study. Do you see anything unusual? Can't say I do. Lisa scratched her chin. She was the only one capable of seeing it, but a star-shaped spot had been left behind by that fire that exploded last night. Something was eating away in her mind, the same nagging feeling when a word is at the tip of one's tongue. Maybe there was something special about that spot. Buddy, can you help me up? What are we doing? Here, right under where the corpse was, help me reach the ceiling. Buddy looked over to Bernardo. The police officer gave him a thumbs up. The crocodile sweated and helped Lisa. In another context, Buddy might have found the idea of giving the hybrid a picky ride as if she was some other overgrown child amusing, but by now he was perplexed. Having the boost she needed, Elisa looked at the ashen star closely and then slowly reached out to it. Her eyes narrowed as she saw the black spot slowly become translucent. Something was moving beyond them. Images. Huh? That was weird. Where's this breeze all of a sudden? Lisa wondered as the cold wind made her pale hair dance above her. Susie noticed the black spots were getting tinier and tinier, and so was the ceiling. Only then she realized what had happened, and a surprised gasp escaped her mouth. But rather than landing on the hard floor, she fell on a pair of soft and feathery arms. Bernardo allowed her to get back on her feet. Lisa fixed her tie and then crossed her arms, looking at one of the nearby windows to the garden. Are you all right? Yeah, what happened? You jumped and hit me in the head while at it. I got startled. She didn't make any other effort to explain herself. Body's gaze turned unusually soft and his shoulders deflated. Bernardo tilted his head as he observed the two of them. Well, did you discover anything? The look in the crocodile's eyes made her stomach boil, but she couldn't understand why. It felt as if it was tugging at something buried deep within her memories, and it was making her angry. This damn Abby had her on edge. Lisa understood very little of what was going on here, and had just witnessed an unexpected murder. She was stressed, that was all. No, I don't know what I was thinking, to be honest. I'm sorry for making us lose time. Let's move on now. Yeah. Sorry for the wait. I'm back. Bernardo entered the study with a bottle of wine in one hand and 3 glasses in the other. Buddy and Lisa hadn't even been talking to each other while the bird was absent, submerged in their thoughts. Still, the wine soon elevated their spirits. They sat down around a little table in the same configuration as when they had interviewed Layla. Buddy couldn't help but smile as he took the first sip out of his glass. I needed that. I imagine these last few days have been stressful. I wouldn't know. I spent most of them on sip. Did your wife recently? Yesterday, actually. Bernardo nodded with interest and took another sip from his glass. Having beat, this wasn't easy. He needed to throw his head back and carefully pour the wine down his throat. It looked like he could easily screw up every time he drank, but he never spilled one drop. At least I couldn't help but admire his beak skills. It was pretty boring here at first. Boring? I'm a guy that needs stimulation. No police and no one wanting to talk makes for a very dull investigation. I say I hope you'll enjoy yourself more now. I bet. Buddy said with an empress smile. At least it lasted only half a glass before she started feeling hot and a bit dizzy. The crocodile drank her leftover wine. So, what did you discover these last few days? Let's see, where to start. The detective proceeded to narrate what had happened ever since his arrival, including the events from yesterday. Bernardo reclined on his chair, taking a sip every once in a while. Very well. As for our next step, what I suggest we do is try to determine who was the first person to arrive at the church that night and how they got inside. Wouldn't it be the same way Giorgio got inside? By stealing a key, that is? Perhaps, but there's a detail I'm sure Maggie must have forgotten to bring up. We are all ears. It's about the staff, or rather the ones that are locally known as the Abbott's Inner Circle. I'm talking about Maggie, Santiago, Ben, Amelia, and Tom. These five have been working here for as long as William, and he trusted them with his life. And he allowed them one little perk. Master keys. Precisely. I will be tracking the origin of the key we found in Giorgio's person and investigate if any other key was stolen and when it happened. So Elisa and I will be looking into the master key matter. Yes. Well, Maggie is my client, so let's exclude her from the get-go. I believe we can agree, at the very least, she's innocent. The bird closed his eyes briefly. Yes, you say this because she's your client, but after knowing her for years, I guarantee she doesn't fit the killer's profile. There is this erratic yet cold-blooded character to these crimes. Maggie doesn't have it in her to pull off something like this. Unfortunately, I can't say I'm so sure about the others. Perfect. We need to talk to the other four, then. The other three, actually. 3? I'd like you to leave Amelia to me. Considering what I will be doing, it would be more efficient if I am the one to speak to her. She's the one in charge of the Abbey's key box at the wall. We will exchange our findings later, so please don't worry. So that leaves Santiago, Ben, and Tom for us. Who will we start with? I say Santiago. I feel I'm close to figuring him out, and with the stress he must be under, he should be more exposed than ever. Sounds good. By the way, about those letters, you can keep them for now. I doubt the culprit was foolish enough to leave any clue behind in them, but don't let anyone touch them. I'll have my colleagues analyze them once they are done with their current tasks, just in case. Understandable. I'll go now. I'll get Santiago on my way out. I don't believe he will be too cooperative if you approach him first. Neither Buddy nor Alicia had any objection. While waiting for the possum to show up, Alicia sat on the chair in front of the desk watching as the crocodile went over his notes. Hey, Buddy? Yes. What do you think of the policeman, Bernardo? He's been competent so far, I'll give him that. If only he and his men had acted earlier. Well, you didn't sound very happy to see him earlier. Not until he brought out the wine anyway. I appreciate the police are doing something now, but at the end of the day, this is damage control. Didn't you hear him? He's talking about the police's duty right after they let another murder happen. What a joke. I guess you might be right about that. Silence falls over the room, only to be shattered by a knocking on the door. Elisa hurried back to the couch while Buddy shouted to come in. Santiago's smirk from yesterday was gone by now, replaced by a frown and a sharp stare. Thank you for coming. Take a seat. The possum did as told, his expression rigid. Such a sad state of affairs we find ourselves in, is it not? Indeed. Maybe some wine will help. The crocodile gestured toward the half-empty bottle on the table. The possum showed his teeth and averted his gaze. In any case, we were hoping you help us shed some light on the recent murders. Can't hurt. We've hit rock bottom. The only way is to go up. Are you upset about something? Ah, yes, very observant. What police school did you graduate from? I didn't continue studying after high school. Anyway, yes, in case it isn't obvious, what happened this morning will ruin my reputation. Yes, I knew from the start William had been killed. Anyone with at least 2 eyes would have noticed, but what was I supposed to do? Santiago rolled his eyes and gesticulated so hard Elisa felt a little breeze. One could almost see him fume from his fluffy ears. We are security guards. We aren't equipped to carry out any sort of investigation. And then the police show up, and against all odds rules the damn thing an accident. Do you know what I thought when I saw that? The crocodile stopped writing for a second, then turned to the hybrid. What did he think, Elisa? That he didn't want to get involved with this. Exactly. The police themselves refused to investigate the murder of an abbot. I figured something more dangerous than your everyday murder was going on, so I decided to play dumb, lay low. But now another victim appears, another abbot from a different church. And then it isn't just you two sticking your nose where it doesn't belong, but the police as well. I must look like a complete clown. I'm not going to deny that, but helping us might help you get your record at least somewhat straight. And probably a detective like me might not seem like much to you, but I know people. I could put out a good word for you if you cooperate. Let's rewind a little. You say you knew William had been killed. How were you so sure? Because of the autopsy report, of course. Were you aware he had been threatened? Threatened? No touching. Buddy says he produced the 2 letters Maggie had found. He saw the parcel of envelopes and read the content out loud for him. Damn it, he still told me about these. Moving on. What about the others in the Abbott circle? Did they suspect there had been a murder too? We haven't talked about it, but I believe all of us notice the truth to some degree. Although I can't speak for them as to why they are keeping quiet, I figure their reasons must be similar to mine. Buddy continued taking notes. Meanwhile, Elisa leaned forward, looking at Santiago right in the eye. Yesterday we stopped by the kitchen to grab a snack. Tom and an old woman were there. Yes, that was Amelia. She seemed to be there too, to coddle him. They were talking. He was about to tell her about something that was worrying him, but she interrupted him. I found it strange. Do you know anything about what's up with that? Santiago's mouth hung slightly open for an instant, his tongue resting between the edge of his teeth. For a few years now, Tom hasn't been himself, and this last week has sent him over the edge. Amelia looks out for him when he's going through one of his rougher periods, such as this one. But this started a few years back. I don't think it's related to the case. Okay, next I want you to tell me about what you were doing the nights William and Giorgio died. William died more than a week ago, so I can't say my memory is clear. 1 week isn't that long ago, but you can start with Giorgio if you want. Santiago brought one hand up to his chin. His voice turned monotone as he recalled the events of last night. It was a cold night, and, as usual, I stayed up until nearly midnight. Despite not wanting to get involved, I was on edge, and couldn't help but pay extra attention to the monster's dormitory. I didn't see anyone exit it before midnight. Did anyone see anything unusual that night? This morning, one of my boys told me he thought he had seen some movement near the cloister. Nothing happened after a few minutes, so he decided to continue his round. He thought he saw two people. I figured it was you. Had he spotted us a bit earlier or stayed long enough to see Giorgio coming, he might still be alive today. Such an unlucky fate, is it not? In any case, no one spotted the killer as far as I know. When I finally returned to my cell, I dropped on the bed and didn't move from there until Remigio shook me awake. He went to the side, showing his teeth with a grimace as he said this last part. But it doesn't last long before his face softened. Well, I suppose it wasn't nearly as bad as the night William died. I prefer a grumpy vampire taking me awake to screams and so much more, and so much smoke I could barely see and breathe. Surprisingly, no one else died that night. Remigio helped. I'm certain he will have saved William too had the flames not originated from his cell, and his head not been split open by then. In any case, I don't know what to tell you. We weren't ready to deal with such a large fire. Had it not been for the knock monks, we would have been forced to evacuate, let the entire place go up in flames. Is there anything else that you can tell us about that night? I'd like to say there is, but my boys and I didn't see anything. Body's pen came to a sudden stop. He remained immobile for an instant, and Lisa saw him a curious side glance. Did you or any of the guards see anything strange before Giorgio's death? I mean, only those two groups, you and the guards. A glimmer of hesitation appeared in Santiago's eyes, but he answered nonetheless. No, nothing was reported to me that I haven't told you already. I see. Body wrote down a single sentence. Santiago's desire to read the crocodile's notes was plain to see in his eyes. For once, Elisa sympathized with him. Let's focus on something different. Did William have any enemies? Anyone that wanted him dead? I'd be lying if I say there weren't plenty of people like that. But within these walls, not a chance. What about the other abbots? Would any of them have anything to gain from his or even Giorgio's demise? The possum recoiled, his mouth hanging open for an instant. I don't think so. I'm baffled at the idea, if I have to be honest. Bonnie nodded. Last question. Do you know about the safe in William's study? Oh, you discovered that. Yes, everyone in the circle knows about it. Santiago smiled slightly as he lay back and crossed his arms. Then he suddenly leaned forward. Actually, Maggie doesn't know. William didn't hide it from her in particular. We just happened to already be here where he had it installed. He never mentioned it to her. Did you know about its content? No, not even we were privy to that information. Interesting. We are done here then. Will you be kind enough to send Ben our way? I suppose I can get someone to do that. A few minutes after Santiago left, someone else knocked. This time it was someone Elisa hadn't seen before, short and colorful frog. He was already rubbing his hands together, his eyes zapping between her and the detective as he sat down. Hello, Ben. I don't believe you and my assistant have met. No, we haven't. I'm Elisa. I'm Ben. I work as a consultant here at the church. What kind of consulting? Public relations, scouting, projects beyond the walls, that kind of business. How has your business been going? Ben opened his mouth, then he lay back on the chair, his butt slightly sliding off of it. He stayed like that with a vacant expression. Body put his pen and notebook down on the table. Elisa, could you get him a glass of water? Why not wine? No. There is no need for any of that. The fox spoke slowly as if trying to emphasize every word. I was hoping you wouldn't ask about how business had been going. Are things rough? Yes, in a way it feels like we aren't needed as much anymore. But when it comes to scouting, there has never been a shortage of people wanting to come study here, so it's not all bad. Still, losing terrain in the outside world is bad, financially speaking, and I can't imagine it getting better. In any case, is this related to the case at all? Oh no, excuse me, I noticed you were nervous, so I wanted to make some small talk to help you relax. I suppose I bossed it. Elisa looked at Buddy as he showed the frog a sympathetic smile. She had seen that expression many times in the past, and it never was genuine. The crocodile prepared himself to take notes again. Let's get to the point then. Where can you tell us about the nights William and Giorgio died? Ben proceeded to explain that on both occasions he worked at his study for most of the day, went to have dinner, and after that went straight to bed. However, once he got to this last part, he finally pushed himself up and leaned forward, giving the duo a meaningful look. You see, Mr. Detective, I'm very light on sleep. You don't say. Every night is the same. Santiago comes back from himself. The racket he makes jolts me awake. Then I get up, open my door, and I look outside the corridor. And I see him, his small silhouette passing by the moonlit windows, on his way to his cell. But that wasn't all the nights of the murderers. Last night I barely caught any sleep. Interesting. Do happen to have very sensitive hearing, Ben. Robert Silson's energy easily gets to me. I see. Continue. Then the night William died, after Santiago came back, maybe it had been minutes or hours, I got woken up again. I heard the front door opening and creaked in the specific way, and someone talking. Talking? Did William have a conversation with his assailant? I went back to sleep to what I didn't realize was the sound of William being brutally murdered until I noticed a fire, of course. There was a lot of running and screaming. Santiago remained inside, and Remigio had to go rescue him. He's very, very tired when he gets out of work. What about the night Giorgio died? You said you barely caught any sleep. Indeed, lots of movement that night. You and Giorgio sneaking around, the hunters doing their cells, monks being rowdy in their cells. And the monk's dormitory is a bigger building, so things weren't as clear. But I can tell you something interesting. It was before I heard you leave. I know when you two left because you were the only ones to use the hallway on the second floor. There was a thud outside, and then a scream, and also outside, of course. Buddy suddenly stopped writing. He raised his eyes to Ben, playing with the pen between his fingers. This is the first time we hear about this. Is there anything else you can tell us about this scream? I can't start imagining who it could have been. Maybe the hunters know? They were keeping an eye on the building after all. Layla didn't mention anything of the sort, but maybe if we ask her about this, it'll jog her memory. Maybe. Take this L. The hybrid woman raised one eyebrow as Buddy handed her his notebook before standing up. Considering this new information, it's concerning that Layla has taken so long to get back to us. I'll go see if I can find her. Could you continue the interrogation meanwhile? As he spoke, Elisa read over what he had last written in the notebook. Sure, make it snappy though. Lisa sat on a significant depression. Body left on the couch and carried on. About the night William died, you heard someone else enter the dormitory and then leave after Santiago came back. Is that right? Sort of. I fell asleep before I heard anyone leave. And are you sure it was the entrance door that you heard and not any of the other doors downstairs? Absolutely. I wouldn't mistake its creak for any other. If the killer came to the dormitory after Santiago, it would mean no one in William's inner circle could be it. Can we take his word for it? Okay, second question. Did you hear Giorgio open his cell's window and leave? My current cell's on the upper floor, like yours, while Giorgio's is downstairs. With it being so far and all the noise last night, I couldn't make out anything concrete coming from there. I see. Elisa shook her head as he wrote. Anything else you would like to add? No, I don't think so. Let's wait for Buddy then. He's near. A few seconds later, Elisa heard footsteps outside of the study and then the door opened. She moved aside to let Buddy sit back down at his spot. Thank you for waiting. Now, I'm afraid I lied to you. I didn't go look for Layla. Did you notice? Yes. How come? Well, first I noticed you went and knocked on, I believe, Maggie's door. You came in and exited a minute later. Then you went the other way to the library, I think. I noticed someone used the staircase. I assume it was you, but I could be wrong. Anyway, you came back down at some point. You knocked on the door of the Ebbett's study, and then you came back here. Damn, you could. Guess you weren't exaggerating after all. Well, even he has his limits. Buddy nodded as he quickly went over the notes Elisa had made. Then he faced the fog and lay back on the couch, his butt slipping off slightly. This is very useful, Ben. Can't thank you enough. My pleasure. Before we set you free, two last things. Buddy showed him the two threatening letters, starting with the envelopes and then reading them out loud. What is this? William received these a few days before he died. Any idea who sent them? Maybe some enemy of his. Sorry, I don't know. Santiago said he knew William had enemies. Good for him. Ben didn't comment any further. Buddy tucked the letters back in his pocket and inquired about the safe in William's study. Much like Santiago, Ben acknowledged knowing about the safe, but asserted he didn't know anything about its contents. As you've seen, told today, and did this morning. It was vibrating harder than the morning bell. Ugh. Let's go look for him. I could use a stop by the kitchen. With all the work, we missed breakfast. Good point. If that's all you need, I'll be on my way. Ben slipped off the chair and made his way out. Buddy stood up and started going over the notes again, eyebrows furrowed. The hybrid stared at him impassively. He said many interesting things. Indeed, he said, and his sentences are very impressive. I have heard of transformative poisons that have the rare side effect of diminishing or augmenting one's senses. But it's the first time I meet someone like that. But I think he's still hiding something. It's possible. He was very nervous at first, but after he caught our attention with this testimony, he held onto that momentum and didn't let go. He was relieved we got interested in that part and didn't ask other questions. Why did you press him? The crocodile let out a snort, his mouth curving into a playful smile. We don't know for sure that he has a secret. He could just be an awkward guy. But if he is hiding something, I want to try to figure out what that is by myself first. I'll stop right here. So there are other people they're going to ask later on. So there's something Elisa saw that only she was able to see. Like some explosion, and I think it has something to do with her memories, maybe, I guess. But only she was able to see it. So Body didn't hear that explosion at all. It's just her. I don't know if she has a hidden capability that she's not aware of, or maybe this, whatever it is, was some kind of strange force that made it look, that kind of, maybe it was something kind of special that only wanted her attention and not others. I'm not quite sure. But she was able to see a few things in there that only she was able to see and experience. Body wasn't able to notice it neither times. So that's all for Nerus. Like I said, we'll continue, and both Body and Lisa will inquire other people in there. So thank you all very much for watching. Goodbye.